Are we live? We live? Let's see here. Gonna press the little button here. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Mead. So, a little over a month ago, we started brewing this thing, and it's looking really good. Not only do we not have any discolored floaty chunks that are growing on top and have started to spread, indicating some sort of infection, but it looks like we got the yeast strain that we wanted, because if there was a wild yeast strain that was brought in as a result of the honey, we'd be seeing these weird little bubbles on top of the thing starting to form. Instead, it's just nice little wispy white stuff. I can still see just barely some bubbles coming up, so it's not completely done yet, but that's okay because we're doing a secondary fermentation to kind of finish things off. And when we add some fruit, we are going to basically kind of spike the yeast and get it growing again, because we're not going to be adding any potassium sorbate yet. Now, if we were to add potassium sorbate, what would happen is the sorbate competes with the active sites in the yeast alcohol dehydrogenase enzyme. And so it's not able to reproduce. We're not killing the yeast, we're basically just preventing it from reproducing. And so what that does is it would basically switch off the fermentation, it would stop making carbon dioxide gas, and then we'd be able to bottle it, because some people want to not have their mead be sparkling because, one, they may just not like the taste, and number two, I'm gonna move that camera up a little bit so it actually looks at me, and then number two, you risk it, well, exploding if it's continuing to make gas and you're trying to seal it up inside of a bottle. So potassium sorbate is kind of a quality control type thing, but since we're doing secondary fermentation, I don't mind the yeast continuing to do its thing. Now, another reason is also if you want to back sweeten your mead. So if we were to add some sugars, whether from more honey or from our fruit, and we didn't want the yeast to eat up that sugar and convert it back into alcohol, that's another reason we'll use the potassium sorbate. Because otherwise the yeast will just keep taking whatever sugar it can get its hands on and it'll just keep running with it. But like I said, we're just doing secondary fermentation. That's the title of today's video, because the bubbles out of here have pretty much stopped. Let's see, I wonder if we can even, you see, nothing. But if we wait long enough, eventually we'll see like a little tiny bubble go. And if I were to just kind of jiggle it a little bit or give it a little bit of a shake, we could probably get a little bit of bubbles going. Oh, wait, there we go. There's something. But all that later. Oh, whoops, I kind of moved the camera there. Anyway, so. What we're going to do is we are going to aliquot it out into these different 1 gallon, some of them are old growler containers like Bear Roots Brewing Company, Ballast Point. I'm not much of a drinker, but I do have a lot of friends who like to drink. I don't think many people do, or rather don't. And then also, from my time in working in a chemistry lab, I got a nice 2 gallon, wait, is this 2 gallon? Let's make sure we get our facts straight here. 4 liters. So actually that's just a big fatty gallon container right there. Actually, I guess that makes these things half-gallon growlers right here. So I'm probably gonna have a little bit of surplus. I may actually need one more container, because this is a little over 5 gallons worth of good stuff right here. And so I've got everything all sterilized and ready. I've got, let's see, we're gonna use one of those containers, we're gonna have mango put into it. Now usually people do stuff like blueberries and blackberries and grapes and, you know, really other generic stuff. We're going really fancy with this today. So mango, cherimoya, dates, yuzu peel. Now usually I don't think citrus is used very often. One, because of, well, it's not really sweet, there's not a lot of sugars in there, but also because things like citric acid actually have an inhibitory effect on yeast and microfauna, I guess, if you will. That's one of the reasons why eating citrus is so good for you, is because it kind of helps inhibit some of the bad bacteria that could be in your gut. Or if you eat too much, it might inhibit the good bacteria that's in your gut. It's kind of a happy medium. And then I've still got just a little bit of hops from the garden that I'm going to use probably in the control, because we already added some hops to this in the beginning. So I think I'll make that the sort of the baseline. And what takes longest is to sterilize everything. So all the jars have been cleaned. My siphon that I'm going to use is nice and clean. I actually, since I'm doing a secondary fermentation, I bought corks and I don't know why I'm blanking on what these things, 3-piece one-way check valve filter. I feel like there's a proper term for that, but I'm blanking. Oh yeah, 3-piece fermentation lock. Oh, there we go. Gotta get our words right after all. So what I'm gonna do is, I've got some boiling water right here. I'm just gonna throw my corks in there and make that their sterilization. Some stuff you can just throw in boilers, other stuff you want to hand wash. So let's get down to business, shall we? Let's start with the mango. So let's open this guy up right here. And I'm going to take my little siphon here. So when we're transferring it, one of the reasons for doing that, because now we have all these chunks. There's going to be chunks on the bottom, as well as some just kind of suspended and floating around. So this is kind of our chance to kind of do away with it. So I stick that in there, and I'm going to add, oh shit, I forgot a funnel. Oh, language. Oh my. Oh, I had another funnel I was going to use. Maybe this one will work. Yeah, good enough. So I'm not as worried about sterility for this phase because the yeast, I almost said bacteria, I gotta watch my P's and Q's. Because the yeast is so established, I'm not too worried about, you know, weird stuff getting in there and taking over. It's still something you want to be aware of, be on top of, and what I could do is I could add some potassium metabisulfite tablets to it, which is basically a really light preservative that won't interfere with the action of the yeast, but it'll help keep other stuff at bay. But really I should have added that at the very beginning of the fermentation process if I wanted to. And I really don't want to if I can avoid it. Metabisulfite and sodium benzoate, which are active ingredients in this thing, even in this pectic enzyme right here, there's starting to show more research showing it's not really too good for us to have that. And so if I can avoid that putting into here and instead replace using preservatives with just having good aseptic technique, I'd much rather have the aseptic technique and not have to deal with that stuff. So now the pectic enzyme I was just talking about, that's important because notice how cloudy this is right here. Anyone who's had a good professional mead knows that it should be fairly clear, and that's one of the side effects of using honey and fruit. A lot of times it gets really cloudy. So, and that's because of the pectin that's in the fruit. Almost all fruit has certain natural levels of pectin, some more so than others. So what we do is we add an enzyme that actually goes and gobbles that up. But even this little enzyme right here, well, let's see, what are the ingredients? Sorbitol, glycerin, sodium benzoate. No, bad carcinogenic preservative. So I got my corks right here. I think that's good enough. Like I said, we're not too worried about aseptic, so I'm not going to be perfect. So I'm going to get this siphon going right here. Ooh, I don't exactly have good gravity on my side, so what we'll do is we'll just swing it. We'll drop it down here. Oh, there we go. Oh, it's beautiful. Now, obviously, it's a tinted container, so you guys probably can't exactly see that, but that's okay. I think you can use your imagination of liquid traveling from one point to another. Oh, actually, it's a nice little handle on my oven. Works really good to balance that on. So another thing that we're doing after this primary fermentation step is degassing it, because there's going to be a lot of sulfur dioxide that's going to be trapped in there, and we need to degas that from the solution. It's not siphoning quite like I think I did something wrong when putting this thing together. I think there's actually a little air valve thing I have to open up, I think. Alright, let's try that. There, it seems to be working a little bit better. So now, well, actually, I can't even tell how full this thing is. Oh my, it smells quite yeasty. So it's getting up there. I think of just a few more pumps. And if we want to break the siphon, we just lift it up. And then we drop it down one more time because we get a little bit trapped up here. Because what happens is you do this to turn it off, and then people are like, well, okay, the siphon's done, and they just drop it right down in there, and then there's still that little residual that's up there and just gets everywhere. So I'm just gonna use that pan right there. So there we go. We have ourselves, I see the mango floating on top quite nicely. So now what we're gonna do is, yes, I am gonna add a little bit of this pectic enzyme, just a little bit. I want to explore doing things proper before I start getting a little bit off the rails with it. And you add 2 teaspoons to every 5 gallons. So actually the easiest thing to do would probably be to just put the 2 teaspoons in there, mix it up, and then have it transfer off, but mixing a 6-gallon glass carboy is kind of a pain. So instead I'm just going to divide 2 teaspoons by 5, which gives me about a 1/4 teaspoon each, which I'm going to add thusly. And luckily in that trace of amount, things like the sodium benzoate I'm not as worried about. If you've ever had hot sauce or, I mean, sodium benzoate, they put that in everything nowadays. I definitely recommend people check their labels and whatnot. So I couldn't find my 1/4 teaspoon, so I'm just going to take that little extra, throw it in there. Alright, so now comes the degassing. And it's also going to mix that pectin in there while we're at it. Now again, I could degas the carboy all at once, but like I said, too big, too heavy. I'd rather aliquot it out to these smaller containers, and then give it a little bit of an old mix. Give it a bit of a mix. You know, it said sulfur dioxide and smell of rotting eggs, but I don't really smell that much, so I'm going to take that as a good sign. We've got our cork, it's nice and hot, and holy crap, the size 5 is too small for this one. Uh-oh. That means it's probably too small for all of these. Oh man, this just got bad. Oh no, it's too small. I'm going to use my hydrometer to pull that out before I make a mistake. Alright, so I even measured these two to make sure that it would fit. I still got the wrong one. Such a shame. So that means I'm going to have to go to the stove, the brewing mart, and I'm going to have to go pick up the right size. I guess it's a size 6 for these guys. And amateur moment, I totally forgot to take my hydrometer reading. And like an idiot, I totally forgot to do it before I drained it down so it wouldn't fall in there. So already we're making some amateur mistakes here, folks, but that's okay. So what we can do is we can still seal this up, and what I'm going to have to do is I'm just going to have to manually burp it every now and again in order to degas it. Not too much trouble. In fact, it makes it probably a lot easier to mix and degas, and now I can just kind of shake it, and then I should hear a little hiss. Oh yeah, just a little bit of a hiss. So, that means it's working pretty good. So what I'll do is, over the next day, before I get the proper sized corks, I'll go in there. And then what I did is each cork is $1. Each one of these things is $1.50. And you can reuse them, hypothetically, dozens upon hundreds of times. So I decided, hey, $2.50 for each one of these. I think that's worthwhile. Not too shabby at all, especially for the reuse potential. So, let's go ahead and aliquot out the rest of these. Let's see here, what's next? Let's do this guy right here. He's got a little bit of this. So these potassium metabisulfite tablets, this would be for, now theoretically I could add these now in order to just prolong the shelf life. I could add it right before bottling, if I wanted to leave it and store it for a year, or if I wanted to market it and guarantee that I'm not, because that's really, if you're selling stuff to people, there has to be a guarantee and there has to be consistency to it. And I may be willing to take a risk of no preservatives for myself, but if I'm trying to, again, market this or give it as a gift or something like that, having that little bit of guarantee is nice. But I'm not going to use those quite yet. Another term for these is, what do they call them? Campton tablets. So if you can't find, I mean, if you type potassium metabisulfite tablets, you know, both will show up. That's the beauty of the internet these days, is it's quite forgiving. So, do a quick little rinse here. And then if you ever see anything wrong with aseptic technique or anything else that I'm doing, please feel free to leave a comment in the future. I'm trying to learn from this. And I think part of the reason why the siphon isn't working super well is because it doesn't make like a perfect seal. But that's okay, it works as a nifty little hand pump. And every time I pump, I'm kind of degassing it as well. So I guess I'm kind of getting a multifaceted use out of it. And I think for this one, what we'll do is we'll add the, whoopsies. I do believe we shall add the dates into this one, because I have more dates than anything else. Slowly going down. I'm letting in too much air now on this thing. I'm going to do my siphon homework after this. No, that's too much. That's okay, we're almost there. It's almost like a choke on a throttle. Let's get that up there, get it nice and close. Now, because I don't have the proper filter thing, I should probably be careful. Another way to break the siphon is to also just lift it out. So that works too. Alright. So, actually the big guy will use the dates. So for this guy right here, let's make this the, ooh, I'm gonna have to keep track of this too. I'm gonna go get a marker. Make sure I don't forget what I put in there. I mean, I'm sure I'll remember, and I can always just kind of look down in there. Black marker doesn't really work on an all black container. Who would have thought? That's okay, I can make it out just enough, and I'll just kind of put M's everywhere, and I should be able to make that out when I look closely at it. Let's see. Thinking about the Cherimoya for the small one. Actually, let's make this the Yuzu. That'll be interesting. So, did I mess up this one too? It's just barely... So it actually kind of fits on that one. I think I'll just need to be careful. So let's, well, first things first, let's be proper about this. Get ourselves a wee bit of a funnel. And then let's just kind of start dropping it in there. And there's a little bit of the Yuzu juice as well. Kind of in there. Just drop it all. Get in there. Get in there. All right. So we're going to let these guys, once we fill it all up with all this stuff, we're going to let it go for another, could be 2 to 3 months. If there's one thing I've learned researching mead, it is for the patient type. This is stuff that's meant to just kind of be sitting and chilling in some cellar, and you're just kind of supposed to set it and forget it, and then come back to it in all good time. So we've added that. Same thing, we're going to add just a little bit of the pectin enzyme. get that good clarification. Totally spaced on taking hydrometer reading again. That's okay. We just need one. And then... Oh, this one has a... So I'll just write Yuzu on the top there. And then, you know what? We'll put the date as well, just so I don't forget. I mean, New Year's Day. I don't think I'm going to have too hard of a hard time remembering that. Okay, so we added that. Now, I'm actually just going to put the cap on so that I can mix it more effectively. Off-gas it. Make sure there's no chunks that are stuck on the inside. You want to make sure all the chunks are in the liquid. It's kind of like kombucha at that point, where you're allowing the yeast to essentially, you know, keep other stuff from colonizing and getting in there. And if I suppose if I really wanted to get crazy about it, I could do a light pre-boil on all the ingredients in order to make sure that there's not anything coming in there. Like something like the Cherimoya, that may be a good idea because it always kind of has this weird fermented smell to it. So do a little degassing action. And instructions say to mix vigorously, but I don't really smell sulfur dioxide or anything like that. So I don't know, maybe if I did something wrong, or maybe I just have a healthy batch and it's not making too much of the bad stuff. It's definitely foaming up and whatnot, so I'll just give it a few passes there. You don't really hear it hissing too badly. All right. Where's that rubber stopper? Okay, so we have our 3-piece fermentation thing. We get some relatively it's called sterile water. It's not really sterilized, so we're just going to add that in there to the fill line. Looking good. Take our rubber stopper. And I've also discovered when I do, whether it's canning or this type of stuff, I like just having a thing of boiling water off to the side. So if I had like a ladle or some other equipment that I just wanted to quickly go and sterilize, it'd be within my means. So there we go. And this is, how's that camera? Oh yeah, that was pretty good. So now I can just have a small army of these just chilling and going. And I can just kind of put that off to the side. I also realized I wrote it on the lid, but that thing's in there right now, so let's just write Yuzu on there, and maybe I'll just put like a little Y. Actually, I'll put Yuzu on there, and then that way I know. So now I just put this somewhere where it'll stay between 65 to 75 for the next few months. That's when we'll have our follow-up video. And then after that, I'll have the potassium sorbate, and we'll do maybe a little control. Half of them I'll sorbate, the other half I won't. And then we'll bottle them, and then we wait another 6 months to a year for that mead to be done. So if you ever have to spend a lot of money on good mead, there's a reason for it. It means it probably spent a whole year making that. So it definitely gives me a bit of an appreciation. I can just picture ancient Egypt, them probably just having cellars full of this stuff, just sitting for years on end, that they would just slowly add to and take from on a regular basis. And then obviously, you know, it was the old school monks back in the Middle Ages who had all the time in the world. Turns out when you abstain from drugs, women, and every other worldly desire, it leaves a lot of time to get really good at making cheese and alcoholic spirits. So, gotta give a props to those guys. Alrighty. Let's do the Cherimoya next. Cherimoya. And then let's see, maybe we can actually get a hydrometer reading on this one if it floats well enough. Let us see. But this time, add the fruit in first. The Cherimoya already has kind of an interesting fermented smell to it. This will be, I'm looking forward to this the most, because I wanted to be interesting about this. We've got the Cherimoya, which is from basically Peru. It's actually solely pollinated by an indigenous moth that lives up there. So in order to grow these Cherimoyas here in the States, in San Diego, we have to hand pollinate it, which basically prevents it from ever really becoming a commercial crop, as well as having a very niche desire in terms of climate. And what I can do is I can put the funnel in that little boiling water solution, and I can kind of keep it sterile if I really want to. I scrubbed my hands really good, so I'm just going to use them to get the little chunks of the Cherimoya off there, so that that doesn't mold over on the outside of the container. We certainly don't want that. I had some paper towels around here somewhere. Alright. So I want to try to make this a 20-minute or under video as well. And as little of dead air as possible. Alright. Let's do it. Yeah, maybe the reason why I'm not getting so much off-gassing is because a lot of it's happening just in the siphoning process. I don't really... Maybe that yeasty smell is the sulfur dioxide. But I don't know, they always say, like, oh, it should smell like rotting eggs. I'm like, well, I don't smell rotting eggs, so... I don't know. Maybe the fermentation isn't as far along as I think it is. I do not know. Oh, my stupid butt forgot to take the hydrometer. And I can't take the hydrometer... Whoops, you see? Oh, see what I did? I just made the mistake I talked about earlier. I thought it was done and there was still a little bit trapped in the top. But that's okay. That little bit down there that's falling in this pan, that's what I'm going to sample. Because I've actually never... Here I am putting all this time and effort into making mead, and I think I've drank mead once in my entire life. And I liked it so much, and I had honey and all the other ingredients, I decided, hey, let's go ahead and see what happens. So, thanks to Mark Latham Knives for letting me use his Mississippi Mud container. I think I like this one the most. So this is 1 quart right here. Do a little off-gassing. Oh, very nice. And then, just like before, add a little bit of our pectin. Oops, added a little bit too much in there. That's okay, let's add the rest in there. And then we should see it start to clarify itself over the next couple weeks. And then ideally at the end of that 2 to 3 month secondary fermentation, it'll be more or less clear. We'll still have some chunks in there, just because, you know, there's byproducts of the yeast. All living organic creatures, no matter how small, create waste product. If you're eating something, you're producing something in waste. And that includes plants too. Plants have exudates that they excrete out of their roots. They don't just breathe out oxygen. There's stuff in the roots that are actually being, again, sort of, I don't even know how to describe the mechanism of that. We'll just call it root exudates in the meantime. That sounds fancy enough, and it's correct in terms of vocabulary. And you may think, well, does that mean soil will have plant root shit over time? Well, number one, apologies for the language. I'm trying to make it a little bit more PG oriented. And yes, it does. And that's why you need to have healthy soil bacteria, because it's the fungi and the soil bacteria that are going in there and basically helping to chew up those plant exudates and then recycle it. I mean, it's more or less what happens with, you know, large mammalian waste and wastewater treatment plants, is we're using bacteria to basically take our waste, ammonia, and turn it into something a little bit more feasible and less damaging to the environment, nitrates, and then reusing that. So in this case, these little chunks right here, they'll also be filtered out. Like I have a filter, you know, maybe, honestly, amateur hour over here, I probably should be using this nice little mesh filter thing, but I feel like I wouldn't need this until I was kind of going to the final bottling process. So I decided I'd just siphon off, because most of the chunks should be sitting at the bottom and it shouldn't be an issue. So, yeah, we'll see. Alright, let's leave my funnel in there for a little bit long. Got my rubber. Does this one fit? Maybe that's my problem. Maybe I should have measured every single one. No, this one, nope, that one's gonna fall right through. Well, oh crap. Alright, well, I'm gonna have to buy a couple of those, I suppose. So that means I'm going to have to cap up this one as well. I'm just going to have to off-gas it over time. Get my marker. Put a C for Cherimoya. Cherimoya. Huh. Whatever they use as a sticker on the outside, my marker does not like it. But that's okay. As long as one digit on this is Cherimoya, I'm good to go. And these corks were 99 cents. I have no doubt that I can get them returned. So I'm not too worried about it. Alright. Next up. Actually, I think what I'll do is I'll save the big one as the control. And I'll add the dates to this one. And then that way I know I can get a good hydrometer reading on that one. I'll still try it from here though. Alright, so here we go. I've used this thing successfully before. What am I doing? Maybe it is a seal issue that I'm having here. I'm jamming it in there, but it's not like I don't really have any rubber gasket or seal for it, and I think that's what's causing the issue. And no, this is not traditionally what one of these looks like. I'm actually reusing a hydroponic siphon. But hey, it works. Let's do a little zoom out action. There we go. Alright. Get it to approximately that fill line so we have a nice solid quart. There we go. Now let's see if I can use the hydrometer. I don't want to lose it in there. Nope, it wants to just sink right in there. So this thing, it's straight up just sinking to the bottom. And I think when I first started it was like at 1.05 or 1050 or whatever. So, I'm gonna have to consult the internets on what to do about this one. But let's add the dates, shall we? So this one, I may actually not add all these dates to it, because the dates have a lot more sugar content, and they also have a lot of other micronutrients in them. So I'm anticipating the yeast to really get up and going again after adding this. But that's kind of why I'm sort of doing this. Is it's an experiment. I want to see what happens. And just a little bit of a pectin enzyme. Same thing, just add that last little bit of powder in there. Seal it up, and then mix while off-gassing it. See if we can hear the hiss. Ooh, I don't know if that got picked up by the microphone. Ooh, I think you heard that one. I see some nice foam in there as well. It's got that kind of that yeasty beer smell. Also, I did add hops to the main one, and I swear I can make out just a little bit of a hop smell. And let me guess. Cork is too small? Yep, cork is too small. I screwed that one up. I'm sorry, folks. I messed up big on that one. And it sucks because I measured it and everything, and I was so sure of myself. But I think what it is I expected the corks to taper off a little bit more, which they did not. Quite disappointed indeed. All right. Put a D on there for dates. Dates. There we go. And I'll just remember to off-gas them. And then let's just checking on those guys over there. All right. Now for the big kahuna, the big control. At this point, I could probably lift it up, put the funnel in, but I don't know. Every time I've lifted up and poured out of this carboy, it's ended with a lot of cleaning of my kitchen floor, and I think I've had enough of that. So I think I'd rather put the time into doing this instead. Yeah, I'm seeing it all nice and frothed up in there. Trying to think if there's any other details I'm missing. We went over preservatives. We went over the action of why we add the sorbate, why we add the pectin enzyme. And that's the other reason I probably won't use pectin enzyme in the future. Because from what I could tell, the only reason people used it was just to clarify it and make it look more appealing. And it's like, why am I adding something with sodium benzoate just to make something look more appealing? I think the market is changing. I think people would rather have cloudy mead with no preservatives than clear mead with preservatives in them. Just a personal, speaking as a trendy millennial in his 30s, I think that's what I would like. That's a good little forearm workout too. Get that all nice and filled up. Oh, I see it frothing up nicely. It's quite nice. I do like a little bit of good froth in my mood. All right. So look at that. I only went through like half of it. So definitely got some calculations I need to work out. And then same thing as before. No, that thing is just sinking like a brick in there. I'm gonna have to look up and see what I did. Alright, cork, you want to fit in this one? Guess I can take that out. That's not gonna do anything. It kind of fits this one. I have to force it through. I think as long as I'm careful, I'll be alright. It's just kind of a shame to screw up like that. Now, so what I'm going to do about this guy, because I need to siphon it off to get all the chunks and whatnot so I can start doing the next stage of clarification. And I have what I need to do another batch of meat. I've got 5 gallons of honey on standby and another 5-gallon bucket. But I don't know. I'd rather use that to make another batch than to transfer that. But I guess what I could do is I could clean the bucket, transfer it over to there, clean this one. Actually, yeah, I think that'd be a good idea. Maybe I'll do a follow-up video on how to do a proper mead batch, because I'm going to be honest with you. If you saw the video where I did the first thing, my septic technique was pretty trashy and kind of had some facts I needed to work out. I was kind of getting my wires crossed on the proper way to do some things. Proper mead making technique. So what I'm also going to do is I'm going to add more hops to this one. But I'm not really expecting much out of this because there's not really any sugar or nitrogen in the hops. And so I think this is really just going to kind of do a flavoring type thing. That way those people who love those IPAs and whatnot, me, I've never really been a fan of that. But I want to explore. I want to try stuff out. And I'm not going to add pectin to this one. Because hops, well, hops are technically a fruit, but I don't know if they produce very high natural levels of pectin. Plus, I just want to do a control and see how much it clarifies it. So after 2 months, we'll pour all of these into some clear glasses, and we'll basically just kind of take a look and see what it looks like. Off-gas a little bit. I'll give it a more vigorous shake to really get that off-gassing that they say needs to happen. Ooh, yeah. Good noises. Shake it, shake it, shake it, shake it, shake it, shake it. Alrighty. Stick that guy in there, and I just have to be careful I don't push it all the way through. Right hops on the side, and then kind of a C with the circle to kind of indicate it's sort of like a, control. Oh, that's right, and I have this nice little sticker here on the back. I'll just write hops. And then take our pectin and make sure everything's stored properly for future use. Excellent. All right. I think that's enough for one day. We've shown everyone how to do the next cycle of things. We did our degassing, we added our fruit, we added our pectin enzyme so we can start getting some clarification. If anything crazy or cool happens, maybe I'll do a little follow-up video. But I think as it stands, I think we're pretty good to go. Let's see, I got my dates container. Are any of these? Nope. None of them are hissing, so there's no crazy off-gassing happening right now. So yeah, I think we're successful. And actually, let's do one thing before we call it. I gotta do a little taste of the product here. I'm expecting it to not taste very good, to be perfectly honest, but let's see what happens. Oh. Well. It's actually, it's actually pretty good. I'm actually surprised. That's pretty good. Huh. All right, well, I'm going to take that as we're doing something right. And I'm a fair lightweight when it comes to alcohol, and I'm definitely feeling something from just that little sip. Like, super lightweight. So I think we're successful. Now what I need to do is get this hygrometer situation figured out so I can actually take some estimates as to what in the world I've gotten here. I think when this all first started, I think I had a, I don't know, you probably can't even read that, so whatever. I think I had a original gravity of, I think it was a 1055. So that could be maybe a 6 to 8% alcohol content mead that I'm making right now. I don't know. I don't know if it's because I'm drinking too early in the day or what, but I'm definitely feeling some sort of buzz from that, so success! You all have a great rest of your 2021 year. If lockdown and all this other garbage has you down, go find a hobby. Go find something to do. Occupy your time. Get a skill. Get good at something. Create value to yourself and to the community around you. All that good stuff. And I'll see you guys later.